Begin tonight with Mark Halperin, editor-in-chief of Two-Way, host of Next Up on Megyn Kelly's MK Media, and one of our highest-rated guests because you are both fair and thoughtful and extraordinarily well-sourced. Mark, you've been doing this longer than I have, but I see this as Republicans doing what Democrats did, and when Democrats did it, Republicans cried and threw a tantrum, and now when Republicans are doing it, Democrats are crying and throwing a tantrum.
Well, I'm long past the point in my career where I'm shocked by hypocrisy in politics. But this one is asymmetrical and very rich for a lot of conservatives in the country. I'm for solutions and concrete actions as opposed to just gauzy rhetoric. But I talk to so many conservatives who say these folks didn't just tolerate cancel culture, didn't just tolerate efforts to destroy people's lives. They cheered it on. It was central to their orientation towards public life. So it's going to take a lot to get a truce here because we're in pure, unadulterated eye for an eye mentality right now.
Yeah, Mike Allen wrote it at one point as the rule in American politics now is do unto others what has been done unto you, which is playing out right now.
Yeah.
The level of outrage within the media about the cancellation, if you want to call that, of Jimmy Kimmel, I think it's not fair to call it cancel culture because this isn't about what he said in the past, it's what he said about in the current moment. Maybe an important distinction. But that aside, how much of the media is upset now because they feel as though there is an entitlement going on and they don't like the idea that there may be people telling them what to do that they don't like to do because they loved it when Joe Biden told them what to do?
Yeah, it's complicated, as you know, because part of the opposition to what's happened with Kimmel and some other cases is principled.
Right.
Even some conservatives would say ABC has a right to fire or suspend anyone who works there, but they don't really want the government, a big government regulator, to say anything that fosters coercive behavior in the private sector. So that's a legitimate point of view. What I think is more to the point you were making, I think, is the media not just tolerated this kind of thing when liberals were doing it for decades, they cheered it on. It was not an orientation of someone shouldn't be forced from their job. It was, isn't this wonderful? And I think what I have tried to do since Charlie Kirk was killed is to say to people on the left, you need to understand why this is so troubling to people on the right. You need to understand it. You need to understand who Charlie Kirk was and what he did. And then what I've tried to say to people on the left is, or people on the right is, you can't just say we now have a license to destroy everything. You have to understand that they've got grievances too, not symmetrical grievances. They're not equal, but both sides have grievances. And if you want to live in a country where people get along, you can't just say we only care about our grievances.
Right. No, that's fair. Your assessment of why the Charlie Kirk assassination matters, spot on. Your piece about why Jimmy Kimmel matters and why Jimmy Kimmel was so offensive to so many conservatives, again, spot on, and why it mattered. But there's this issue in terms of, I think right now, this idea that any type of censorship is akin to Nazi Germany, is what we heard from Democrats today. And then, as you point out, the media and Democratic politicians in 2021 love the idea. We put together just some of that.
You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation.
But reducing a liar's reach is not the same as censoring freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is different than freedom of reach.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
This is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site.
I believe that when it comes to broadcast television, like Fox News, these are subject to federal law, federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't.
The irony that AOC doesn't know the difference between cable television and broadcast television we'll leave to the side. But again, why is what's happening any different than what was cheered on?
It's not. It's just whose ox is being gored, to use the old metaphor. I find so much of that montage, kudos to your team for putting it together because of who they were and how clear the point of view is. They're discombobulated. As I wrote today, they're used to having one of the big asymmetrical advantages, controlling all the social media platforms run by liberals for liberals. They're used to controlling all the major broadcast networks. Now CBS is not, they don't control CBS anymore, and the guy who owns CBS is trying to buy CNN. This is undermining to them. And what I say to Democrats is, okay, you want to help? You want to bring the country together? Acknowledge that the sound bites there are reflective of your strong desire to have people canceled, your strong desire to tell platforms what to do in a coercive way, just as you're denouncing now. And so far, I don't have too many takers on that.
No, one of the reasons we love having you is because how well sourced you are. Titans of industry talk to Mark because of how much he knows. This is different, though, right, in what we're seeing, because I have never seen before major corporations, which were also another pillar of the elite liberal sort of stranglehold on American institutions. They certainly went all in when the Biden administration wanted equity in ESG and vaccine mandates and the like. And now you're seeing them basically do the same thing with the Trump administration. It's not that their views have changed, it's that they realize this is how to make money.
Yeah, there's a new sheriff in town, and the new sheriff has new rules. I'd love to interview them all because even the ones I know and talk to, I still can't get a straight answer from them. Where do they actually believe? Are they simply for currying favor? Because the reality is they didn't. There was a lot of stuff about the Biden administration they didn't like. There's a lot of things about the Trump administration they don't like. And in many cases, they're now going against their liberal employees. So the CEOs can switch back and forth, but when they switch to Trump, they're going against their liberal employees. And one of the most undercovered stories, I think, in America, and this is true on university campuses as well, you don't hear a lot of protests. You don't see mass quitting from Facebook. You don't see even anonymous quotes in the New York Times saying, "How dare Mark Zuckerberg go to the inauguration?" So something's happening that's causing the CEOs who previously claimed, "Oh, I can't go against my woke employees," or the university presidents who said, "I can't go against my woke students." Now they are in a major way. Bob Iger. Have you heard anything about Disney employees protesting Bob Iger suspending Kimmel? Nothing. And I can tell you the Walt Disney Company is filled with liberals.
Right. And look, we saw what happened in Florida, right? Big change.
Yeah.
And I'm going over my allotted time with you because of this conversation being so important, but I'll ask you the final question. Is it because now corporate CEOs are realizing that unlike in 2017, 18, 19, 20, when they could sort of still be counterculture to Donald Trump without much penalty, that now there are penalties?
I mean, it's definitely part of it, but Leland, I have to say, I've never given you this answer on the program. I really don't know. I do reporting on it literally every day. Part of it is they feel a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders because they know that Donald Trump may well come after them if they don't do what he wants. But it's more complicated than that, and I'm still trying to tease it out and understand it. It is a complicated, fascinating story because a year ago, this was not their orientation.
No.
Just the dismantling of the DEI programs is extraordinary with how quickly it happened and how little outcry there was when they did it.
All right. Mark, always appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Honored
One of
to
the
be
only
on.
reporters who will ever say, "I don't know." You never have a guest say that. It's why we have you back.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.